Hello, world. Welcome to the Business and Travel Club, where we help travel and lifestyle content creators grow and develop a sustainable business while also partnering them with brands to help develop the local tourism economy. My name is Shanae, and I'm the founder of Business and Travel. And I am here with two beautiful ladies that are ready to share with us how to pitch to publications. So, first, we have Takesha Burton from Mama Wanderlust and Taryn White from the Trip Wish List. So I'll let you two take the stage, share your bio, share information about yourself, and then we'll get into the content of how to pitch to publications.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Taryn White, freelance travel writer. And I have a travel blog, as you said, called the Trip Wish List. And I've written for major travel publications such as Afar and Condé Nast Traveler. And I cover topics including family travel, food, hotels, historical and cultural topics, and wellness. I'm in the DC, Washington, DC area. Been here a while, a little more than 15 years. And I have two daughters, that love traveling also, and a husband.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I can't see me, but anyway. Hi, I'm Takesha Burton of Mama Wanderlust. As Shanae mentioned, that is a family travel blog. I have been in the journalism business for a long time. I am, I hope, older than I look, but I have about 3 decades worth of experience in journalism. I started off in broadcast, and then I started freelancing for newspapers. And I also, just like Taryn, am in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm in Maryland, Southern Maryland in particular. For my blog, I write about family travel and culture and history and use travel as a way to educate my children. But as a journalist, I kind of just cover all travel as in hotels, culture, history, just like Taryn as well. I have written for a few outlets. My latest one was the Saturday Evening Post, Hemispheres, which is an in-flight magazine for United, Afar, and a couple other ones. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to learn from both of you. I know, Takesha, you were in Essence Magazine. Taryn, I see your stuff all the time, and I'm on your newsletter. Takesha, you're sending newsletters now. So I'm really excited to learn from you. And I know other members in the club are as well. So I'm going to let you both take the stage and share the presentation.
Okay.
And I know we had an order, so I believe Taryn is going first because she's going to talk first about developing a niche. So Taryn, if you need to share your screen, you have access to share your screen.
Okay, I'm just gonna talk to it. I don't know if you wanted to, if you had like an outline, is fine, but there you go. So in journalism, you often hear what's called a beat. And so it's simply a niche or a genre of writing to specialize in. And I think of it as being akin to a musician finding their sound. So a journalist finding their beat is similar to that. And when you continue to cover stories for a particular beat, your knowledge of it grows and you develop expertise. And so um, I started, I think that every business should have a blog, even if you're like doing like YouTube, you can have a blog that points to that. And so I started a blog. That's one way I think you can develop a niche if you aren't a seasoned journalist. And you can use it to figure out the topics that you like, that you love writing about. It's something also that you own, and you can just write whatever you want, and that'll help you figure out what you're truly passionate about, and things you like to write about. And even if you don't start a blog, you can use social media to find your niche. Like, what are you posting about? Uh, and look for trends in what you post. Sorry if you hear my kids. What you post about on social media, and use that, to develop your niche. Um, and so I post in my niche also. I write in my niche. Oh, hello. Um, and also read articles by other writers in your niche or your potential niche. And all of these things you can use to evaluate whether you have, a passion for that area. It's not something that's set in stone, and you can also branch out. But if you're always into like restaurants and food, start writing about food. Start posting on social media about food, and figure out if that's something you truly would enjoy writing about. I'll stop there.
And I've heard before that if you think about a niche as a way to, whatever it is that you love so much that you can talk about for 10 minutes nonstop, that's probably going to be your niche. So it's whatever makes your heart sing. Many times I know that when I go on an assignment, the PRs, the tourism boards, they have an agenda. They know the story they want us to tell. But as journalists, we kind of make our own, we kind of dance to the beat of our own drum. What is the story to them is not a story to me. And one of the things that makes my heart sing are anything dealing with BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people's histories, or any underserved, underreported stories that I'll find. And it's usually not something that a DMO will offer. Or another thing you can do is, if you just like Taryn said, the things that you talk about the most, whatever you're most interested in, like if you read papers or magazines, most of us are skimming. We're not reading in depth. So what are we looking for? So the thing that you're looking for, the little bit of information that you're looking to find, is what probably makes you excited and what you could possibly talk about for 10 minutes straight with, not even coming up for air. And I know that anything dealing with Black history, I can talk about just straight for 20 minutes easy. So that's always been my niche. That's always going to be my niche. It's definitely where my heart is. I'm always looking for stories of me in your destination, because I have a theory that I can tell a lot about your destination by how you treat people that look like me. So when I find those people and I find my people in your destination and I talk to them, that's the story for me. It usually always is. Do you want me to talk on the pre-pitch work, Shanae? I can start on that one. I think that's one of my biggest things. The thing I've learned for pitching, as far as being successful at it, is all the homework. There is so much homework you have to do. At least I do. I don't know about you, Taryn. But for the most part, when you're starting off and you're doing a cold pitch, you have to understand the story that you want to tell, but look at the magazine in and of itself. You have to research the magazines. You need to, when I say research the magazine, open the magazines and look at the ads, because the ads are going to tell you who the readers are. So if you see, I guess a Rolex advertised in this glossy magazine, you know that these people are affluent and they're probably going to be more interested in a luxury travel story or something really, really different. So I say, do the research, find out who to pitch. I think that's another subject we can talk about, but just do your research on who you're pitching, how they write, the tone and voice. Look at the verticals within the magazines, because magazines have different topics that they cover. Even if it's a travel magazine, you'll see some adventure, you'll see, outdoors adventure, you'll see historical, cultural, you'll see, different stories. And most of the time they're categorized. I know that I was looking to pitch something for Hemispheres last week, and I was looking to see where would I want this story to go. So if you make the editor's job so much easier when you pitch, if you say, hey, I have a story for you that might be great for this section. That way you're taking a lot of guesswork out. I think that's it on that part. Do you want to add anything?
What if it's good for multiple sections? Do you say, I think it would be good for either of these sections and here's why? Or you list multiple sections.
I don't give multiple, I never give multiples because I think it gives the impression that you don't know your story. And it's easy for these editors to pass. And they do it quickly. And we could talk about that too, about following up and stuff a little bit later, but the editors are skimming quickly and they know what they're looking for, and you either got it or you don't. And if you give them more options, in my opinion, it makes it seem as if you don't know the story and you don't know what you want to talk about and you don't know where it should belong. Now they might take what you say. If you say, I said navigator section, the editor's going to tell you, oh, I don't want that for navigator. I want it for, this section as seen on TV or whatever the section is. I'm making up stuff right now, but they know where it would fit best. But I think to give them options I think it comes across as possibly not being sure of yourself and your story. Do you agree, Taryn? I don't know.
Um, I mean, yes, I do. I do agree with that. You want to be as confident as possible. Like, I am going to write a great story. So yeah, be as confident as possible.
I like the
And
what you
succinct,
mentioned
and succinct,
about,
as you said. Yep.
what'd you say, Taryn?
And succinct, as she was saying, as Takesha was saying.
Okay, I liked your process of looking at the ads that they put in their magazine, because that's something I never would have thought about. Is like, okay, the ads, they do pick ads based on who their audience is. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I went to look for the Saturday Evening Post, and I saw like ads for those stand-up open door showers. I was like, okay, so this is for an older, much older, demographic. So they're really probably looking at a story that's going to be more, a different told as this way or from this perspective. So that gave me a lot of perspective on who reads. If you have, because the people are going to put their money. That's a lot of money. Advertising money is a lot. There's a lot of money in ads, and these people know who they're targeting. And for you to look at that ad, I immediately knew this is a much older crowd, and they're looking for a certain type of information, a certain type of story.
So then once you look at the ad and you know the audience that they're speaking to, how do you go about crafting your story to speak to that audience? Like where do you pull inspiration from to then speak to that audience?
Any one of us, or I'm always going to tell, I think, okay, so I feel personal stories are easier to sell. When we're getting a commission, we're selling stories to these outlets. A personal story always is easier to tell. It's easier to sell. However, sometimes people want you to have a story commissioned before you leave, before they buy your ticket. They want to know, hey, you have that this one magazine has said yes to your story. So I think I just pull from personal experience because I know I'm going to tell a personal story. It's going to be personal because I'm a person and I'm having this experience. So I'm going to share this human experience. So I know it's always something crazy. So I know right now I'm trying to pitch something just in real time for a festival. And I am a woman of a certain age and I've never been to a festival. So I think it's a story that I'm, such and such years, TK years old. And I'm going to my first outdoor festival, and it's for 2 days. And I don't even know if I can handle it, but that's a story. And I don't know exactly, I don't know if my knees gonna be ready for it. I don't know if I'm gonna be ready for this heat. It's like a story. I just don't know who to pitch it to. That probably would end up being an essence-like story as a personal essay. But as this, I've never been to a festival, and I think the things that tickle me, I think, are stories that somebody might be interested in. But you just gotta find out who that somebody is, and then who that somebody is targeted to the magazine that somebody's reading. So I write my pitch based on, a few things. So I haven't written the pitch that way. It's more of a straight up and down pitch. Like, I'm going to this festival. It's going to be awesome. Let's, spread some joy here and coverage of this festival. But I think the true story, because I always try to get a few stories out of one trip, because you have to make it worth it as far as money and time. And I do have 2 little children and a full-time job. I moonlight as a freelance writer. So when I leave my house, to go on a story. I already know in my head, I'm looking for 3 to 4 stories so I can, make money and make the time that I'm committing worth it.
And do all 3 or 4 of those stories, you write them for the same publication, or you're looking to pitch to 3 or 4 different publications, or you reserve one for your blog?
Usually no, although for this particular story, I did pitch 2 different stories to the same outlet because it would be like, it's a DMO, it's sending me to this festival, it's happening in their area, and they're putting me in this really nice hotel. So I think I can sell it as a hotel story. I could sell it as a personal essay about, these knees ain't making knees. I could sell it as just an overall festival. I mean, there's so many stories in there. And my brother's trying to come. It could be like a family story. I can just the personal part, because you can sell a personal story to anybody. You have to also think outside of travel. If you really want to get some clips, think outside of travel. I am an alum of Black Press. I always say go to the Black Press and sell your story there, because the Black Press is always in need of writers. And it might not pay the best, but it's a clip. A clip is a clip. And if you're looking for clips, then I always like to support my Black Press.
And Black Press what is Black Press?
Oh, Black Press, they have it's an NNPA. It's like the Black Press is historically Black newspapers across the United States. So it would be your Baltimore Afro, your Miami Times. So where you find Black people, we usually had our own newspapers before we were integrated. And those papers, many of them are dead now, but some of them still exist. Was it Chicago Dispatch or something? It's a list of them that still exists. It's not a lot of them. Here, I worked for the Washington Informer for a little while when I first started freelancing. When I first moved here and I was looking for a gig, I was like, well, I don't have a job yet, a steady gig. Let me just, get out here and be a stringer, and the stringer just covering whatever stories they throw my way. And that's always a great way. I'm sorry.
When you're looking for press, you're looking on Google, you're just typing in Black Press, or is this an association?
It is an association. So it's NNPA, National Negro Publication, something like that. They have their own like AP style wire. But you can look up, you can Wikipedia it, really just Google Black papers that are still existing today.
Taryn, did you have anything to add?
Well, I guess some of this could be like under the, I guess, finding the editors to pitch. But yeah, you can Google like the publication and look for like the page that has the editors on it. Sometimes it's called masthead. And so it has like a list of editors and a bio on the editor, which is very helpful to know who, which editor is covering which topic. And you can also just go to LinkedIn.
I think you froze there, Tarn.
Most of them will be, involved in like writing and editing. And so that's a way to easily find like people to pitch.
And the piggyback, I think, are you stuck, Tarn? Oh, I can see you blinking. To piggyback on that, you also want to look at Twitter, because Twitter is where editors pop up.
Okay.
People are, I don't know if you've noticed, but they're calling it the media apocalypse. So a lot of these outlets are closing. A lot of people are walking out. Was a walkout last week from Condé Nast. It's a lot of stuff going on within the media world where these outlets are no longer existing. So you'll see a lot of turnaround. So you want to be on Twitter, because most editors I know always announce their new positions on Twitter first. Before the masthead ever comes out, you'll see somebody say, hey, I'm over here now. So you want to also use Twitter as an outlet as well for finding editors.
Yeah, and they'll have a call. Sometimes they'll have a call there, a call for pitches on Twitter.
So what would you say would be some Twitter profiles we should follow?
Ooh.
A Twitter what?
Profiles.
Profile.
Oh.
I would say writers of color.
Okay.
You're always giving the sad trombone to people who don't say when a editor gets on there and says, hey, we're looking for writers for this story. If they don't put how much they're paying per word, they give them the sad trombone and they go on this like hit list where you no good, don't come over here anymore. So it's called Writers of Color. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I do have a few other resources that I like because I did invest in learning how to pitch or learning how to pitch better. So I did take a course. It was like not Pitch It Perfect, but it's by Rebecca Weber, and she has a podcast that I really, really like. So you can also tune into podcasts if you're looking for inspiration. I actually just listened to her to inspire me to keep going because, there's a lot of this that it's hard on your ego if you are used to getting yeses all the time. Because sometimes, the answer is no, or you just get crickets and you get ghosted and you feel sad and lonely. I'm just kidding. But it's tough sometimes. And if you have a good story, you have to keep up. You just gotta keep at it. Also, another resource I found is Muck Rack. Now, I don't know if you can join Tarn. Can you join Muck Rack if you're not a journalist? I think you can.
I don't know.
Because
Yeah.
when I go on Muckrat, sometimes I will reverse look for stuff. So I will put in the outlet to find out the editor, or I'll look at other writers to see who they're writing for because there's so many outlets and so many magazines
Mhm.
popping up. I don't know who I can pitch for. So I like Muckrack. It's Muck space RACK. I think that was like an old school term for journals, I think. I don't know. But I think you can get on there because it takes a while, but once you get some clips and the outlet recognizes you or acknowledges your clip, then you become verified, I believe. I don't know how many you need, but you get a green check that basically that the outlet has or that the website has vetted you and you're truly a journalist. But I think you need like a clip or two.
So that's the part that I'm always like, what does it mean to actually be a journalist? Because there's no license for journalism. So when you say to be a journalist, does that mean that you wrote an article on your blog? Does that mean like what's the threshold for calling yourself a journalist?
Well, I never had one until I went to IMM last year and I met a woman and she was really funny at a mixer and she said, oh, I'm not a journalist. And I said, what are you? And she's like, I'm a writer. And I said, well, what's the difference? I'm asking her what's the difference. And she said, the difference is journalists go to school for journalism. I don't know if I agree with that, but that was her take on it. I think anybody can be a writer. I don't know if you need to go to journalism school to call yourself a journalist. I personally did go to journalism school, but I don't know if that makes anybody any less of a journalist. I don't know. So that's kind of debatable.
I was speaking with someone else and they talked about the difference between journalism and writing, like writing for your own blog, for example, is journalism is when you are interviewing someone about a story, and writing is where you're not interviewing someone, but you're sharing more information, knowledge, or a personal story or personal essay.
I have to look this up because this
But
is pretty big. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I
Tara,
don't know
yeah,
about that
yeah,
one. I
because
don't know about that one.
okay, because I'm like, yeah, what makes someone a journalist? I mean, if you have experience writing for publications, if you have the education, you know, what makes you, especially if there's no license.
yeah,
So it's
there's
kind of
different.
the tricky, yeah. So what about editorial guidelines?
They're like your Bible. You must. I think you should just look them up. Like if you want to write for AARP, type in AARP pitch guidelines in Google, and usually something will come up. And pay attention to it because sometimes we don't and we get embarrassed. I'm talking from experience. I'm speaking from experience. I recently
Same,
did something
same.
and somebody was like, well, we don't cover that. And I was like, are you sure? I didn't say
Yeah,
that.
or this isn't available to freelancers. And it was
Mm,
in the guidelines. I was like, oh.
wah, wah.
Well, I have a pitch I can share with someone else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, I'm gonna move on to the components of a good pitch. I had written down, I always get this, why now? Why is your story important right now? Like, what is the news that's happening right now? To make your story relevant to be put in this publication, and why you? Why are you the best person to tell this story? I think those are two components that you cannot skim or skirt over. You have to include why this is news, or why it's important, and why now, and why you to tell the story. Because who you are is very important nowadays. I don't know if anybody's noticed that the travel landscape is changing, and we're no longer going out to someone else's country and reporting back what we see as other. Sometimes I'm not qualified to tell a story by about an indigenous tribe. It's not my place. So some stories are meant to be told by certain people.
And it goes to, what you're saying about which publication are you pitching. That is going to determine the components of a good pitch. So if it's something geared toward, AARP, or, you're not going to talk about partying in Mexico or something. Yeah.
I mean, old people like to party too now. But you get the point. But I think you definitely have to I think you should say where it should go. We're talking about the components of a good pitch. Who you are. Who you are. Please tell people who you are. I am, Shanae, located in California. I'm this kind of writer. This is what I cover. Here are some of the things I've written before. And if you don't have clips, maybe you have something that's more editorial on your blog. Maybe you should just send that as well. If you don't have a list of clips from other outlets, you still have the work you've done. And sometimes that might be good enough, depending on who you're pitching to.
Okay, good. Because I do personally have some things on my blog, and then I did have the opportunity to write for Travel Noir when I was living in Morocco. But sometimes, like, I don't know how valuable or valid or,
It's a clip. A clip is a clip.
It's
a clip.
Okay.
Better use that
Okay,
clip.
cool. When it comes to finding editors, I know we talked about it, but for relationship building on Twitter, for example, if you find an editor, do you personally message them? How do you build relationships with editors so that it's not always a cold pitch?
You follow them wherever they are. And like, these conferences and meetings, you can oftentimes meet editors by going to different travel conferences. But yeah, I mean, I think that most of mine were pretty cold. I'm trying to think. I think most of mine were pretty cold. And so I just find them online. And if you have a good story, then they'll be like, yeah, a good pitch. They're like, yeah, why, they're going to accept it. And then you develop a relationship through working together on multiple story ideas or articles, pitch, whatever, articles. And how you go about finding them, like we said, Twitter, LinkedIn, looking on the magazine's publication, the publications like editor list, the page where they have editors. And you can use tools like Snobio. I guess I could share a link to that. Snobio, to just research their email address, because there's a certain format that a website like afar.com, it may be first name dot last name at afar.com, something like that. But Snobio is a tool you can use. Hunter.io is a tool you can use to find like the email format. It's not always 100% accurate, but that's how you can find their email addresses and send the pitch to them.
Now, I've had situations in which most of my pitches from last year were warm. So I went to one conference where I was able to meet with some editors one-on-one, like have these one-on-one meetings that you have with people.
Mhm.
And I had a story in mind for that particular editor, and I would pitch that story and they would say, oh, this is more of what I'm looking for. And so a lot of my pitches were built off of warm conversations I've had already. So that's why I was able to find a lot of success last year. So that's always helpful. And, relationship building, like Taryn said, I don't want to say that once you're cool with the editor, I have not found that to be true. I need to work on that. I don't know, Taryn, you got to give me some tips. Like once I have an editor I really like, we work together. It seems like the more I love them, the more next time I see them, they're at a different outlet or they're
Yeah,
gone.
yeah,
I'm having a lot
yeah.
of that. People who I like the
It's a lot of
most,
turnover.
yeah, so I haven't been as fortunate as I would love to just have a relationship. The goal is to have a relationship where you just call an editor and be like, hey, I'm going here. This is what I'm thinking. What are you looking for? What do you need? And that's my goal eventually, professionally, to have that type of relationship. So I don't have to keep doing these cold pitches.
Right. Yeah. And no, I had kind of built something and then, like you said, editor left. Yeah. Yeah. But no, most of mine started off as cold because I was in a period where I wasn't traveling, had little kids. I wasn't going to meet anybody really. Um, but yeah, but I used like a cold method, got in the door, an editor left, one of them. And then another editor left at that same publication. I was like, oh well. So I'm starting over with one publication, but others, it's been a little, it's hit or miss. And some of them, they have like pitch calls where they have a Google form. So you can't, you can't just send them an email. They want you to contact them through pitching through Google Forms. So that I haven't developed relationships with publications that have kind of like that kind of process. And DMs on Twitter has never worked for me. That it's a way to find editors and see what they're looking for, but that just I don't know, just has never worked for me. Um, but yeah, Synovio tools like that you can use to just find kind of the format. Once you decide, okay, I'm going to pitch this editor at this publication.
Oh, baby. I miss when my babies were that little. Um, I'm gonna go to the dreaded follow-up.
Okay, I was gonna ask about that.
It is. Oh, did you have another comment or no? The follow-up, the follow-up. Let me say this. I want to stress this. Always keep a running tab of who you're pitching and what you pitched to them. One of the things I have found is that I've gotten my most success off of a no. So if I pitched a story to Condé Nast, I'm just making up stuff, and they say no, I already have in my mind the next story I'm going to pitch them off that no. So I don't know if it's guilt or what, but usually they feel bad by saying no, I don't know. And I'll say, okay, well, what about this story? So I keep a running tally of who I'm owed a response from, what's still pending. Because I personally, I know there's a lot of debate in the journalism world. I don't like to pitch the same story. I never pitch the same story to this outlet. And I don't like it to be too closely related, even if I do like something that's a break off, because I'm afraid that two people are going to say yes at the same time. That's never happened. It's like a unicorn. I don't know if it ever happened, but I'm always afraid two people are going to say yes. And then I'm going to be like, I'm going to have to choose. Or I'm going to have to, apologize or repitch it to the whatever outlet. So, and I also, the class that I took was called Freelance Writer Bootcamp. Now that I remember it, Rebecca Weber says that you should always follow up one more time than you're comfortable. So for me, I'm comfortable circling back. Hey, I just want to check in one time. But because of her advice, I have done a good job when I'm ghosted at circling back 2 and 3 times sometimes, depending on how much I believe in the story as a fit for that outlet. So follow up, follow up, follow up. You know, I know we might be in our feelings. It does hurt your ego, but it's not personal. These people are inundated. They have thousands, probably seeing thousands of emails a day. It might be a great story. You might have a great idea, but they've already covered it. Also, when we say do your research, please make sure that the outlet you're pitching and the story you're pitching has not already been covered in the outlet. And if you're coming with the same story that's already been covered, make sure you have a different angle. So that's a part of the research part, if we back it up a little bit. So when you're doing your pre-pitch work, you're going to make sure that the outlet that you're pitching hasn't already covered this particular story. So sometimes that it might be that, you know, I got a really great no one time, and it was because they were working on a story that I already, something similar to what I pitched. So, you know, it's tough. It's tough. Sometimes I'm gonna cry. I'm just, just joking, but it's tough to be ghosted or not get a response. Tarn, you, what do you say?
No, it's true. It's true. And then you can't know what they're working on a lot of times. Because I've had that, oh, where we just finished a package on that topic. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I wish I would have known.
Okay. So, you know, I just
Yeah.
got the same email. I got the exact same email. I pitched a story about a Caribbean destination, and I'm pitching it out, and I'm thinking, yeah, this person's really gonna want it. And her response was like, "We just finished a whole issue for on the Caribbean. It's coming out in a couple months." I'm like, "Oh, they could have called me. I don't know."
Yeah.
This,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
And that's what I was thinking, like when you build the relationships, do
right.
people, are you top of mind for people as a journalist that they could call on and be like, hey, I have this story. Would you be willing to pitch it? Like, are those the type of relationships that you would say you both are working towards?
I am. I know. I'm certainly working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had some of that. But I wouldn't like bet on that. It's just it happens when it happens. I can't predict it. And yeah, I'll reach out and say, hey, and sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, so let's go over the like step one, step two, step three, the guide. Okay, so we got developing a niche first. So for our first timers, the first thing we want to do is develop a niche, or because my thing is, what if you have multiple niches? Would you say that's okay? Because it really depends
Yes.
on who you're pitching to. But then in terms of that background, because they're going to be like, are you experienced? Or they're going to check your portfolio. How should people prep for that first time pitcher?
I think a
I
niche can
had
be.
a blog. Yeah. Right. So I referenced stuff I wrote on a blog. I don't have a traditional journalism background. And so that worked because the blog posts were, I guess, good. So that's why I would stress if you don't have that traditional background, write something on a blog.
I totally agree. Absolutely. And yeah, what you said.
No, that's very encouraging because when it comes to blogging, we have more control over the creative
Mhm.
process,
Yes.
over how it's published, when it's published, why it's published. So I do like that aspect. And then we could use that blog as a portfolio to say, here's
Mhm.
the work that I've done so far, and here's how I would like to expand upon it or branch out. So that's
Mhm.
great
And, it,
advice.
Yeah.
and if you're looking for to pitch a .com or an online magazine, that will help if you're getting a lot of traffic, because those online magazines are built like blogs, and they're driven through SEO and Google searches. So if you got your SEO game on lock and your blog is getting the numbers, these same outlets, you know, Essence of Glossy Mag is different from essence.com, and they're looking for that traffic. So if you can bring that traffic or help them, you know, with something catchy or some cool title or something, they're looking for the same juice.
Mhm. Exactly.
So what about tracking and automating communication, or just, yeah, I have another question after that.
Oh,
After,
well,
you said after that?
oh, okay. Well, I keep an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm a nerd. I'm a rule follower sometimes. So I have like the story, who I'm sending it to, the person, I mean, the outlet, who's the person I'm reaching out to, and then I color code it, like never heard back, like totally ghosted me, a yes, or just a no, flat out no. And I put when I followed up, when I'm gonna follow up again, and what my what story I'm gonna pitch them again if they say no. I also have this weird sheet that I just created recently where if I made a little blank slot and I say, you know, this is the story I'm thinking of. Here are all the outlets. And then when I start doing my research to see if these outlets have covered this story or this area, I just strike it off. I strike it off. So I know I can't pitch these people because they've already seen it already. And then I'll put like 1, 2, and 3 on who I'm going to pitch this story to. And I'll put a note on it. Like it's all analog. It's like a paper that I write on, but that helps me keep track of who I know as editors at certain outlets, who are my dream publications that I know I want to pitch, and how I can make this one. Rebecca Welber talks about, I'm saying her again, she talks about the black t-shirt. She says, everybody needs a black t-shirt, right? So when you do your pitch has to be written, it has to be tailored to that outlet. So my pitches are always going to be a bit different depending on who I'm sending it to. So a black t-shirt on me, I might like, you know, a nice little fitted tee with a V-neck. You might like, you know, something cotton and comfy and a little bit loose. So every outlet, even if they want the same story, so everybody want Black History Month. They want a different story, but it might just be a Black History Month story, but they want a different Black History Month story. Everybody don't want the same story. So you have to keep that in mind as well. When you're writing a pitch, it needs to be different. The stories need to be different depending on who you send it to. They need to be bespoke and custom made. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And, I want to see if this is going to work. Add a column here. So I have like different like files. And then oh, okay. I thought I was frozen. And then I have like Google Notes. I use that to, oh, I pitched this here, check, check, check. But I've been trying for the longest to utilize this software or application called Streak, because it has kind of like stages that you can put stuff in, and it integrates with Gmail. And so I have like a lead stage, a pitch stage, a follow-up stage.
You stuck?
I'm kind of behind. So I can't, I wanted to be able to tell you, oh, I've been doing, but I'm not. I'm just kind of behind on my goals with using that application. But it is really good to organize the different contacts, and it automatically shows you when you last contacted them, and you can make the columns, you can make whatever columns you want. So I have columns with notes like I pitched them this story, and it'll just show the date of last correspondence. But it's so powerful, and I've only scratched the surface with it, but I do like it.
I need to use that. Streak.
Streak. Mhm.
STREAK.
Yeah, I don't know if it's .co or .com but yeah,
Anything to help because there's a lot of juggling.
it's so much, yeah, I was doing good at one point with like Excel, and then because I have all these different files with all these for all these different purposes, like I had like my niches. Okay, so family travel niche, these are the editors, this and that. I don't know, but it's a lot. Yeah.
And that was going to be my question. In terms of the writing process, how do you organize your writing? Like, how do you organize your writing? Because I'm sure you don't sit down all at once and write everything out. So what's your process for like, oh, this thought comes to mind, let me jot this down, then I'll go back and revise it, refine, and things like that. What's your writing process like?
Ooh. Well, I'm one of those crazy people. I write real slow And I do sit down. Okay, I don't really sit down and write it all at once. I kind of take notes along the way. So I'm taking notes while I'm on the trip.
Exactly.
I'm taking notes on the trip. I'm doing a little research. And when I sit down for those 500 hours, when I sit down to write it, uh, I have learned I'm very much an A-type personality. This is my personality type. So I get stuck. If I don't have an intro, I get stuck. So I get stuck on the intro. So I have recently learned to give myself permission not to write an intro until I'm done. So I write the middle piece and then somehow I'll come back to the beginning and I'll be putting notes here and then I'll come down to the end and all because I'm with the notes I take when I'm on the trip are very uh I guess tactile. I don't know. I'm talking about sounds, tastes, things that the reader can't experience because I'm trying to make the reader experience it. So I'm using all my senses. So if I hear my foot on a gravel, I'm going to write that down, like the crunching of my feet graveling, because I'm trying to paint a picture. Because when I went to school, I learned how to write for radio, people who can't see you, how to write for print, people who can't experience the things you experience. So you want to describe them in a different way. So I might have a whole thing of just adjectives and descriptions of sounds and smells, and then somehow I'll just layer it in. It's a weird, crazy. It's no real system, though, really.
No, but that's the creative process. You sound like me. You sound like me. It's all over the place because it's kind of like what sparked this idea to begin with. But I start with the pitch, the lead, the pitch. I start there, cut and paste it into the document. This is what I pitched. This is opening lead. That's the pseudo intro. I leave it alone because I get stuck on the intro. So I leave it alone. I finally figured that out too. And then I'm just writing different sections. I'm like, okay, I kind of put a little outline together. I'm like, I think that there should be something on this, something on that, and something on that. But it's really what gravitates me about that I'm gravitated toward that I start writing about, because that's, I guess, the spark. So, if there was some, I don't know, beautiful, I don't know, scenery or something, then I'll just be writing about that. And I do take notes like you, notes about sensory things, notes about what some source said that nobody would know, like the historical aspect of something. So I'm writing stuff like that. Like sometimes it's like quotes. And I don't know if I'm going to use them, but such and such said this. But yeah, your process sounds similar to mine.
Chaos and craziness.
And it makes sense because, like, for example, you might have, like, if you're not sitting down all at once to write everything, maybe you're washing the dishes and something comes to mind. You're like, oh, let me remember that because that's something perfect I need to add to spice up the story. Or
I
maybe
have
you're in the
I
shower,
have to stop.
so.
I will have to stop right there and go write that thing down because I won't remember.
Mhm.
Oh, it'll be gone.
Exactly.
Washing dishes. Wait. Stop.
Exactly. And to your point, Taryn, it really is the creative process, because to sit down, like, and force yourself to just crank it out, you're missing out on some creative opportunities or some sparks. So it is good to have that dedicated sit down time, but then, like you said, wait to do the intro, because your intro is going to be written once you have everything, all the details, all of the meat of it. You'll have
Mhm.
the intro basically once you finish writing it and put the
Mhm.
conclusion together. It'll be like, oh, I already know what I want to write as the intro. Because I feel
But
like for
like I
me,
said,
because it's that attention, it's the attention grabber. It's just like, you're always thinking like, how can I bring people into this? How can I get people to really read this? But it's fleshing out those details that helps to really pull that intro together.
yes. And it does start with what you pitched that editor, that paragraph, it goes right there. And I just let it stay there. I'm like, okay, you're just sitting right there. It may not make sense, or, I don't know. I'll have to tweak it later, but I have just gotten so stuck
Yeah.
starting with the intro. I
You
had
have
to
to
leave it
give yourself
alone.
permission. You have to give yourself permission to move around and do whatever you tell the story in a different way. I also, before I write, sometimes I just like, I know some people do not do this. They don't like to read or see anybody else's work, but I personally, I'm always in need of adjectives and a different way to say something. So I'm always, the thesaurus is my friend. And one thing that I love, I admire food writers so much because I don't understand how you can take two paragraphs and to describe a mashed potato. So sometimes I'll look at a food story and be like, wow, that was such a beautiful way, an eloquent way. I know, what does this word mean? Or I'll gather a couple of adjectives from a food writer and be like, okay, maybe I can, maybe usually food doesn't really work, but you know, food doesn't always work in a travel story, but sometimes the adjectives are so beautiful and I just love how lyrical the writing is in food writing. And I'm like, okay, how can I take the way and the tone and it sounds like a beat, it's a sound, it's a movement of words. I'm like, how can I make this what I'm writing over here about kayaking in Victoria, BC, sound like this mashed potato? It doesn't really work really in the real world, but when I look at that kind of writing, it just inspires me to try harder.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people are more poetic, you know.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
kind of I am a literal writer and I am what I am. And so I might add some of that poetry in there, but I'm kind of like, history, facts, yeah. But I know what you mean.
Reporter. You sound like a reporter.
I would be great. Yes. Yes.
Jasmine said, I will do this with videos. I like to see the story come together and then ask myself, how can I bring the audience in? How can I hook them based off of the way I wrote the story together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes the story
It,
is a thing in and of itself. It becomes
mhm.
a thing. It becomes its own thing that you really don't have you really can't control. Like you're just here to tell the story. Like I wrote a piece and I was supposed to be visiting a hotel. This is another segue, but I was supposed to be visiting a hotel. I'm here in British Columbia and it's supposed to be all about the hotel, but I asked to go on an Indigenous Peoples tour, First Nations tour, and we went on this tour and that became my story. But then in that story, I had to learn something. I had to learn that I'm not allowed to tell certain stories. It's not my place to tell certain stories. And it's not one First Nations person. They don't have the authority to give me the permission to tell that story. So I had to find a whole new way to tell a story I couldn't tell. And that was quite in and of itself a lot. I'm not trying to intimidate people, but it was a lot because I didn't even know there was an Indigenous people style guide. So you guys, when you do your research, you got to do your research because I use AP style, Associated Press style guide, and then I had two style guides in my hand trying to write this piece. It was the hardest piece. I don't think it was my best piece, but I'm the most proud of it because it was very difficult to tell a story when it wasn't my story to tell, and the other person who told the story couldn't give me permission to tell the story. So sometimes our jobs as reporters or journalists or writers are to have the experience and just share the experience because I got into journalism to share stories to people who look like me who might not be able to have the experience. So sometimes you need to get down to your why. And my why has always been to provide a lens of the outside world to my community. And sometimes you can do it in a flowery way, and sometimes it doesn't matter how you do it as long as you tell the story.
Jasmine said, how do you pivot your pitch or story when things don't go as planned during a trip?
As journalists, they can't tell us what to write. You just change it. Or you're talking about if you're already commissioned to go out from an editor is giving you the green light? Because if you're dealing with okay, if the editor is giving you you just have to talk to your editor about it and see if they're willing to still run it in a different perspective or different point of view. Or if they have any insight, I would call them while I'm on the trip though, if that happened. Did I answer your question?
She said yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one more question for me before we wrap it up. When it comes to the pitch, you don't include okay, I'm gonna be here for this amount of nights. I'm gonna need a hotel. I need airfare. You don't include that in that initial, this is the story I want to write. You wait until they say yes, and then you go over those details, right?
No.
Or even sometimes is it not that you're going to a place or you're not going to experience something, but you're writing about it?
Well, I personally, I'll answer that for me. Most of the time, if I'm on a press trip or I'm going on an individual trip, I have been invited by someone to come there. And when they invite me, the unspoken agreement is that I will try my best to get the story of that event or that location in somebody's outlet, not my own, but somebody else's outlet. Because of that unspoken, I don't know if it's contractual, but it's, I guess, because of that agreement, they usually will fly us out and provide a hotel, depending on how far it is or what's involved. Sometimes I'm just going to be in the area. And as with on my family trip and I want to see something, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be in your area. I might call the PR and say, hey, what's good to see here? Because I'm thinking there might be a story here because I'm already traveling on my own. So I don't know. Taryn, how does it work for you?
It's something was broken up a little bit, but I think I got the gist of I guess you're talking like maybe timing, Shanae. Was that kind of your question? Like if you go, well, maybe you can state it again.
My question is more around negotiating what's involved once you get a yes for the pitch. What's involved with airfare, accommodation, how many words per cost, things like that.
So it's really like two sides to that, to a story, really, at least for me, because I'm operating on the freelance side, not, with a publication that's going to send you and, I mean, that can happen too. But most of the time I get invited by PR or a destination. And then after my trip, I'll pitch a story idea based on the trip. So I already know what I want to write about. So
Mhm.
there's no expectation from a publication prior to. I wait a lot, most of the time after the fact. Sometimes I'll ask an editor, hey, would you be, I'm about to go on this press trip. Would you be interested in this to gauge interest? Um, but usually I just, pitch after the fact because then I know exactly what I'm pitching.
So remember that website I told you about, Muck Rack? I found that a lot of people, PR, have found me through Muck Rack. They find me, they're looking for a journalist in Maryland because there's a new flight, direct flight from DC to, somewhere else. I don't know. And they're looking to promote and they're looking to build something around that. And they want to have, we're talking about press trips. So be mindful that if you take press trips, you are ineligible to write for some outlets. So you can't do a press trip for AARP. It has to be, you have to pay for everything yourself. You can't even get a media rate. You can't have taken a press trip in 3 years to write for the New York Times.
Mhm.
Um, I think the Washington Post as well. I
Yeah.
feel like they're being a little,
Most of the newspapers you can't have done a press trip and write about travel.
and if you don't know, a press trip is when the PR firms for the destinations or the destination tourism boards get together. They find resources like airfare or hotels who want to participate, who might want to be perhaps mentioned in your article, and they will give up the rooms for you or this group, and the PR and the tourism board will pay for your flights under the hopes that they will get some media coverage from it. There's no guarantees because we don't own it. It's not our blog. It's not like our blogs where we own the landscape.
Mhm.
These people won't give you a guarantee really. When I say these people, I'm talking about actual editors. They're not going to say we're going to guarantee coverage because at any time,
Yeah.
even when you have a commission, they can kill your story. Even when you already written it. Usually they'll give you a kill fee depending on who you're working for, but which is a small percentage of what you were agreed to get paid. But for the most part, if you're dealing with a press trip, a lot of this stuff is built in. And so, yes, I do tell people like I'm going to this festival. The festival has a set date. I'm going to the festival. I'm going to be here on these dates. And I might throw in, if you're keen, I'm staying at this nice little hotel if you want a little review of this. depending on my relationship with the editor. But I do
Yeah.
put date.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I have done some beforehand, but a lot of times just doesn't happen beforehand.
It's hard.
Yeah. I
You don't even
tried.
know
I'm
what
like,
the story is. You don't even know what the
what'd you
story
say?
is. You don't even know
No,
what
you
the
don't know
story
what the story is. And they know, they can tell. They're like, what? So like, okay, never mind.
Yes, exactly. Because my story might be my knees. My knees. My knees ain't what they used to be. So here's the story.
Yeah, I might want to write about this. It kind of, I don't say that, but they can kind of like,
So they know when you're not sure.
yeah, yeah.
But thank you both so much for taking the time to share your knowledge with us, share your experience. I'm looking forward to taking this information and running with it and actually pitching and developing my story and making connections with editors so that I can get started. And then also working on my own personal blog too. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, do you all have any final words? Where can people find you online? How can people connect with you after this workshop?
You can find me on Instagram at the Wanderlust Mama or the Mama. Wait, I never know that. The Mama Wanderlust or the Wanderlust Mama on Instagram. Sorry, and my website is Mama Wanderlust. I'll put it in the notes in the chat. And Shanae has my contact, you can email me at hello@Mama Wanderlust. Any questions you have, I'm always happy to share.
And my website is tripwishlist.com. I'm on Instagram, Taran Traveler. And you can email me as well. hello@tripwishlist.com.
Thank you both so much. And I look forward to seeing you all in the club and continuing to learn from both of you. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Bamba.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, baby.
Until next time.
Right. Bye.
Bye.